Thank you all for coming. Last night when I left, our trainer Mike Flick said, make sure that I open this press conference up by telling everyone we're still tied for the first place in the league. Obviously a tough night, and a tough start to a season. Been a lot of change here at Lenoir-Rhyne, and there's been a lot of change within the football program. We're trying to basically start over from scratch, culturally, offensively, defensively, and within the kicking game. Had a very good team meeting last night. The weather didn't allow us to get on the field, what it did for about 5 minutes, and then we had to come back in. We were able to watch a lot of tape with the guys and show them that we were within 4 or 5 plays from winning, the football game. And a lot of times that sounds like coach speak, and sometimes it is. You try to put a positive spin on everything for your team and yourself and your program. But the truth is, if we just make 1 or 2 plays, offense, defense, and kicking game, and then that game, it comes down to the wire. I'm not saying we're definitely going to win it, but you get into a different type of football game. We called a couple post routes early in the game that, for whatever reason didn't hit. I know the reasons, but I'm not going to point, fingers or blames or all that. But if we hit on those plays, then you're up going into halftime, and then you're playing a different type of game. They're basically playing a 9-man front. That's their style of defense. They're going to stop the run. The week before, Nelson rushes for 260 yards. So, you combine that with what their philosophy already is, you're going to get a lot of people at the line of scrimmage. It's imperative that you're able to throw the ball over top their heads. And the 2 calls we had, one was, we missed it by this much, and the other one, we missed it even closer than that. If you hit those, then they're unable to keep playing the way they're playing. Now they have to be less aggressive on defense, and offensively they don't get to just take the dink and dunk throws. They have to play a little bit differently. That's the way, athletics is. That's the way sports is. That's the way football is. So in one half of me is telling the team and myself and the staff that we were that close. The other half is saying we were really far away because we're not making, those plays right now for whatever reason. The thing I told the team and the thing that I believe in is the only thing you can do is come back to work the next day and improve on those things. Last week when Florida State got beat really bad by Louisville after the game, I was watching Jimbo's press conference, and he said, we've got the same coaches and the same players in that locker room. It's not going to nothing's changing on that right now. So we got to go find a way to figure out with these coaches and those players what we can do to fix the situation. That was his job. That's my job. That's my responsibility. There's a lot of reasons that we're off to the rocky start that we are, but those reasons, a lot of them can be fixed and will be fixed, and it'll just take a little bit of time. I love the kids. The thing I told the team last night is the most important thing right now is our culture in this locker room and this meeting room on this practice field has to be one of work, has to be one of enthusiasm, has to be one of sticking together. You always have cracks in your program, no matter what. When you lose, those cracks become gaping holes. When you win, you kind of cover them up. They're still there. Right now, that's our job, is to make sure they don't become gaping holes and become problems. As long as we're coming to work and enthusiastic and willing to get better each week, then I know we are going to be a very good football team. I believe we could compete for the conference championship as early as next year. I believe we're going to be on the national scene in 2 years. I go to bed every night believing that. It's the only thing that allows me to go to sleep at night. I know that because I know this roster the way I do. I know how recruiting is going the way it is. All those things are positives. But right now, we're 1-3 going to Carson-Newman, who's a very good football team. I mean, we watched them yesterday, Sunday several times, and then yesterday again and again and again, and it's not getting any prettier the more you watch it. I mean, they got a veteran quarterback who's going to be tough for us to tackle. We're starting, Flick and I figured up last night, we're going to start, depending on which set we start in personnel-wise, somewhere between 13 and 15 freshmen or redshirt freshmen going to Carson-Newman. So that in and of itself isn't going to be easy for those kids. And now you look at their receivers, and they look like 3 NFL receivers, and they got very good running backs, and they got a quarterback that can make the show go, and they're good up front. And defensively, I mean, they play a lot of man-to-man coverage, and they're a under front team, which is very one of the harder fronts to run against. A lot of people can't play it because they can't man up on the outside. We would like to play it more often, but we can't line up. We can't line up man-to-man a lot on the outside. So what's up? The deck's stacked against us a little bit. It's not going to be easy, but we're going down there with the attitude of we're going to prepare all week to win. We're going to go down there planning to win. We're going to play to win. We're going to compete to win. And then whatever happens, at the end of the day happens. That's got to be our mindset. I don't see how else you look at it as a football coach. You know on Sunday, Monday what you got to do and what the odds are, but by Saturday, by the time the ball's kicked off, you're convinced that you're going out there and winning that football game. So that's got to be our mindset. I've always taken that mindset. More times than not, I've came out on top, and that's going to be our progression this week. We'll give it the old college try, as they say. I'm sure there's some questions. Anything?
Over the last few weeks, your defense has improved greatly. But going against Carson-Newman, they're the number 4 ranked rushing offense in the league in NCAA.
Yeah.
What can y'all guys do to kind of contain their rushing attack?
Well, that's an awesome question. The biggest thing when an option team, and you all are used to seeing this option team, is it really makes you play a certain style of football. It's assignment football, and we talked about it this morning. Is a lot of the individual and a lot of stuff we've been doing is out the window this week. It's downhill, and if you've got the fullback on the dive, you got to take the fullback on the dive no matter what they do. Because the first time you don't, there goes the fullback on the dive. And if your job's to stay in the deep third over the top of the receiver, you better do it, because as soon as you think, I'm going to help my buddy with the pitch or the dive or the quarterback, no, that's when they pull it and they hit that guy. And Coach Spark's been there a lot of years, calling the same plays, and he knows all of your little tricks. There's nothing we're going to do schematically that he hasn't seen, that he hasn't seen probably 25 years ago. So it's really not about, we're not going to draw up something over the weekend that's going to stop Carson-Newman, or everyone would have already thought of it. For us defensively, it's got to be assignment football. It's got to be doing fundamentals, defeating blocks, and it's got to be all of us running to the football and pursuing and covering up the mistakes that people are going to make. Because it's not like, okay, I got the dive and no one's going to try to block me when I've got the dive. I got to defeat a block and take the dive, and whoever has the quarterback's got to defeat a block, and take the quarterback. And then they change the blocking scheme, and it's someone's down and the guard's out on me, and they got all the tricks. Would you say they're number 3 in the country in offense or rushing? Yeah, that's par for the course. I'm surprised they're that low. They run the football, and the reason they're probably not number 1 is because they're better at receiver than they've been in the past, and they throw it out there to those guys every now and again. So defense they've got to step up. They can't have a good week of prep. They got to have a phenomenal week of prep, and then they got to go out on Saturday and trust it. They got to trust that. When if I've got the pitch and he's got the dive, I got to trust he's going to take that and do my job. If I go try to help him, then that's going to burn him somewhere else. So, yeah, you got it nailed. It's tough. We got to play well. We got to play great team defense.
With that being said, do you think your defense will be comfortable since it is an option style and that, like, you guys used to used to run?
That was my theory Sunday. I was like, well, these kids have seen option a million times, and then I looked at our lineup and I'm like, no, these kids haven't seen anything. A lot of them have coached it, and then obviously coached against it, and I think that's been some of the success here in the past. We beat them last year. I think we beat them like 4 years in a row, and it was really mirror programs. I think when I was at Cal, when Coach Lockhart interviewed me at Cal, he said, we've got to look at everything IUP does and mirror it and do it better, because they'd won the league like 18 of the last 20 years or whatever it was. And it was, we had to mimic IUP and beat them at what they were doing. And we eventually did that. I think we won the league like 7, 8, 9 years in a row, whatever it was. We became that team. I believe when Fred came here, he looked at Carson-Newman and said, we've got to mimic and look at what they do. And you looked at the style of offense and defenses, they're very similar. Recruiting was very similar. The way they set up scholarships and their programs were very similar. And eventually, because Carson-Newman had won it how many years, in a row, and they've been the dominant team. And I think, Fred and then on the mic, they kind of carried that, that tradition. We're obviously different, now. We're not looking at it that way. We feel we need to build it a different way, and right, wrong, or indifferent, that's where we're at. So, to answer your question, it is something that we are somewhat familiar with, but not as familiar with it as we've been in the past.
Last week, you guys could have had a couple big plays here or there, and the game would have been different, like you said. Has the trust in the offense between receiver and quarterback improved over the last couple of days, or?
No, I think it's growing over the last 2 weeks. If you'd have you saw us in week 1 against Virginia State and where we were at. If I showed you last Thursday's practice tape, you would say, my God, we've you think we've arrived. You know, we walked in the office on Friday morning and Coach Lopez was going, he was making Patriot jokes about how the timing was so good in our pass game, and it was, you know, and a lot of times on Saturday it was. But when you get soft zones and people playing you a certain way, that is one issue, and we're working hard just to get there. When you get, I'm going to guard him, and someone's got to win, then, you know, that's a different issue. And it doesn't just work like that. Like, if the receiver wins and the quarterback's off, it doesn't work. If the quarterback's on and the receiver doesn't catch it, it doesn't work. If they're both right on and the right guard gets beat, it doesn't work. You know, it's really all 11 working together, you know, to make a complete pass game. I mean, last Thursday in practice, we had a play where the will linebacker stepped outside and they slanted, you know, the 3 and the 5 and brought the will, and our line traded that off, and the receiver took the right release, the backward where he went, and the quarterback saw it, and we threw it and caught it. And I said, boys, that's, you know, 2 weeks ago, if that will linebacker walked out there, we act like he was playing hockey or something. It was a different sport to us. So we didn't realize that could even happen. So our identification and our ability to get to those things has grown immensely. But unless you're watching tape every day and seeing these kids grow, you don't get that. If you come out here on Saturday nights and you say, well, they lost 30, you know, what was it, 31-13 or whatever, and they looked, you know, at times they looked good, but other times they looked inept. Well, that's you know, that's a nickel's worth of looking at it. You need to be a coach and delve into it a little bit deeper to see that. I get to see that. My job is, how do I keep that growing and try to find a way to win games? And that's, you know, that's where I'm at as a coach and where we're at as a staff.
With young players and them trying to make those big plays, when they don't succeed in them, how do you kind of calm them down a little bit and calm their nerves? Well,
I mean, the first thing I think you do is you tell them you believe in them, and you explain to them, like the one post right you're talking about that was the drop. I mean, I told the kid at halftime, I said, better players than you have dropped that pass. You're not the first guy that's ever happened to. I mean, Jerry Rice has had that happen to him. You know, I mean, I tell Jared, Joe Montana got booed. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you got to have a little bit of thick skin. You got to understand that. And if you're a competitor and a good player, and all these kids are, you know, then you realize that good days are coming. You know, I mean, they hung Dean Smith in effigy here around here. You know, I mean, how many years ago? You know, Mike Krzyzewski was told on the elevator on the way down the ACC game that if he didn't win, he was getting fired, you know, by an alum, and they got beat by 40-some points to Wake Forest. And the guys, you know, the guy's got more national championships on his, you know, in his room. That's, if you don't have thick skin, you don't last in this business. And I mean, you got to believe in what you believe in, you know, as a coach, and we're going through that. And you got to believe in what you believe in as a player, and those kids are going through that. And I told them yesterday, you know, Sunday I sulked around a little bit and did my work, and a couple of things kept staying in my head. You know, this too shall pass was in my head. You know, it's always darkest before dawn. You know, tough times don't last. All those little cliches just popped in my head, and I talked to the team about that. I was like, in 2 years, whenever you're doing this, or next year when you do this, all those same people will be in line, you know, cheering for you and telling you how smart I am and what a great player you are. And that's is what it is. So you got to have a little bit of tough skin. You're going to drop passes. You're going to throw interceptions. You're going to fumble footballs. I mean, that happens every day in football. You know, how do we react from that? You know, instead of responding to it, how do we react? How do we respond positively instead of reacting negatively? That's where we're at. And that's my number one job right now as the coach, to be quite honest with you, is to keep that culture moving forward and not get the outside influences in their head. And if we were winning right now, and everyone was telling us how great we were, my speech would be, don't listen to them. You know, they're going to bring us down. We got to remember what got us here. You know, so that's your job as a coach, is to help that along. Yeah, interesting.
Last question for you is, now we're heading into conference after this is your second conference game.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're about to head into conference play.
Mm-hmm.
What is the feel for the team? Like telling your team that these games are the most important games, or after the non-conference schedule?
Well, I mean, you know, as a football coach, it's the most important game this week. I mean, last week we were playing Limestone. We weren't thinking about Carson-Newman. You know, I knew Sunday when I watched Limestone, I watched their defense, and I said, man, they could cover. And they got a couple really good linebackers, and the one DN's a transfer from Tennessee. You know, how are you blocking him? I mean, that's where my head was at. And then, you know, then Coach Lopez calls me at, you know, noon, and is like, "Do you see the 3 receivers yet?" And I was like, "No," you know. So then your head goes there. So, you know, you weren't thinking about Carson-Newman, And now all you're thinking about is Carson-Newman. I mean, I just did an interview for the school newspaper, and the guy was asking me about homecoming and UNC Pembroke, and he was giving me their stats, and I was like, buddy, I got no idea what you're even, talking about. I just, it's all Carson-Newman right now. So you hope the team's thinking that way. I guarantee you they're not overlooking this one, especially with the start that we're off to. Carson-Newman's got a lot to play for. They're 2-2 and lost to two, very good teams. They lost to Catawba in a struggle, and then Humboldt State, who's a nationally ranked program. So they're a very good 2-2 team. Don't let that record confuse you. They're a good football team, and we've beat them a few years in a row, and I know how they feel. I know what those IUP Cal games were like. I know what the Fairmont Shepherd games were like. I know what the Northern Michigan Tech games were like. And I'm assuming, Lenoir-Rhyne and Carson-Newman is one of those games for their kids and our kids. So we'll be up for it. I think we're going to go down there and compete. I think we'll play physical. I think we'll run to the ball. I think we'll do some good things. And that's all I can ask for. As long as we're playing hard, I'm going to be happy. As long as we're competing, I'm going to be happy. When we quit playing hard and quit competing, then I got issues. I got things that we got to fix within the program. The wins will come. I've been here before. I've been 1-3 and won 6 straight. I've been 1-3 and finished 3-8. I've been 3-1 and finished 500. I mean, I've been. You coach long enough, you go through all that, and you try to lead your program that way. You let them see that you're not panicked and you're just coming to work every day and working hard, and you hope that you lead by that example and that your players do the same. I don't think we got an ounce of quit in us. I don't see it. I mean, I see how hard. Now, we didn't always practice hard. I mean, when I got here, we were the worst practice team I've ever seen in all my years coaching. It just, we had a fumble one day in practice and no one jumped on it, and I was like, what was that? And it was a team rule that they didn't want anyone hurt jumping from fumbles, and I was like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. So we've tried to change. We've been fighting that, left and right. Getting guys to practice, trying to explain to them that there's a difference between being injured and a difference between hurt. Everyone's hurt. Everyone's groin hurts. Everyone's arm sore. Everyone's, you're playing tackle football. You're not injured. You don't get to be. If you're injured, you can't practice. If you're hurt, you practice. And we modify it and we look at it as coaches. So that to me has been the biggest part of my job, is trying to change that culture from within the locker room. And I think we bought in. I mean, week one I didn't. Remember, in press conference week one, I said, boys, we don't play hard. We're not physical. And since then we've kind of changed it. We're playing hard. We're physical. We're running to the ball. And that's been the improvement on defense. And that's why we've been running the ball. We didn't do anything different scheme-wise. We just did it harder. We just did it better. And that's been our improvement. And if we keep doing that, we'll keep improving. If we don't, then we're going to have to start all over with a whole new crew, which I don't see that. I don't foresee that happening. Anyone else? It's because I answered them so long. You don't get another question.
I think you answered one question I had, and that is that not just this year, but the last couple of years, Carson-Newman has put up a lot of points. They've given up a lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
They have this year.
Yeah.
They've played some good teams.
They play some really good teams.
That's necessarily a weakness in the defense. It's just playing good teams.
No, there's no weaknesses in that defense. I mean, their nose guard 92 looks like 2 nose guards. I mean, he is a man, and they're 2 corners, especially number 2. He's about as smooth as I've seen. They're very good at linebacker. I mean, Humboldt State comes out and they score on a play where Carson-Newman isn't lined up yet. They take the snap and throw a go route to the guy because Carson-Newman's just breaking the huddle. They had a scramble drill where the running back goes down the sideline and they hit. And what's Humboldt State right now? Like, whatever in the country. I mean, they're one of the better teams in the country. So they made some plays. Morris Hill is loaded at receiver. I mean, they're not good at receiver. They are loaded. Last week, I think I told you 5 and 10 were legit, and I didn't think the other kid was as good. Well, and my coaches kept saying, no, they got another kid. Well, this week when I watched them on tape, number 1's back. So now 5, 10, and 1 are legit as they get. 11's as good a quarterback as there is in this league, and 2 is an excellent running back. And I got beat 52-27 or something. Yeah, and Catawba's defending league champs, and I mean, I think they're excellent defensively, Catawba. I mean, they got some guys, they play a little more conservative brand of offense because they're so good on defense. And that's what happened to us Saturday. If we get to stay in that game, like in the fourth quarter when it became throw every down, I said on the headsets, I said, boys, we can't throw every down. We ain't throwing a pass. We ain't throwing 10 passes in a game in 10 years. You know, and now we're going to get in and try to throw 10 passes in a row, and you expect there to be success. I mean, I know as a coach that this is going to fail. And we had success. We went down the field, did some things, and we were moving the ball doing it that way, but you know that you're living on borrowed time when you're in that game like that. I knew that the day we had my press conference. I knew that was going to be part of the, process. But you can't get in that game. But what are you going to do? It's 31-6, and you're playing to win the game. If you get beat, or 24-6, if you get beat 31-6, who cares? I mean, what's the difference? That's the thing I've never understood. If you lose by 2 or 52, what really you lost? And I never understood the difference between 7-4 and 4-7. I've been both those. They felt the exact same to me. Now when you win them all, that feels different. And I've won them all, and that's what your goal is. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to build a program that can win them all, not one that could go 500. How you get anyone to do that? We're not. I mean, we're up against it right now, but eventually, 500 is going to be a bad season around here. All right, I appreciate everyone coming. I'll see you next week. Thank you.